Hello, everyone, and welcome back to YWAV On Demand podcast. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about engagement and online school. Now, the way that we did this episode is a bit unconventional. It's a bit different due to some tough times. However, God's grace is still present, and we hope that it remains as purposeful and as encouraging as we had intended it to be. So without any further delays, this is YWAV On Demand podcast episode 3.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the YWAV On Demand podcast. My name is Ken, and today I will be answering some questions regarding the topic engagement in online school.
Can you give some helpful tips to stay motivated with online school?
Not a really easy question to answer, mainly because there's a lot of ways you can be motivated when doing online school. I, for one, find it really difficult to stay motivated, mainly because when you do online, there's always distractions, and distractions are everywhere, especially since if it's online, you'll be on a computer or you'll be on a screen, and most of the time there's distractions everywhere, right? For example, like there's social media, or there's streaming websites, Netflix, YouTube, Disney Plus, right? It's not necessarily easy to distance these distractions, but I guess one tip I would give is really distance yourselves from distractions, mainly because it'll help you keep focused on what you're supposed to be doing. I have instances where I have either lectures that I need to listen to, or have reports that I need to write, or assignments that I need to do. But having it online, I always think that, it's online, I can do it later, right? Because if you were in an actual classroom setting, you'd have to do it right away. But since if it's online, you can do it at your own pace. So there's room to be lazy, but it's not good, right? So my mom always tells me this: duty first, right? Because it's the right attitude to have when it comes to your academics. It's your duty to pursue your academics, right? And you really need to do what you need to do first before you do anything else. Because if you're like me, sometimes I push the deadlines, or I just say, I'll do it later, until things pile up, and then at some point you just feel really overwhelmed because there's so much to do, right? So definitely avoid that. Like I said, duty first, right? It's also important to, I would say, write down a list, right? A to-do list, because if you were to write a list, it's easy to follow what you need to do, right? You can check, like, for example, okay, for this class, I need to listen to this lecture. Okay, check mark. Or for the next one, okay, I have a written assignment I need to finish. Check mark, right? So it's good to have a list, because that way you can keep track with what you really need to do. And it also helps with priorities, right? Because you can put on the top of the list, like, what are the top priorities you need to finish, right? It gives you that sense of urgency as well, because that way, when you have them on the list, it's easy to follow, right? You can just do check mark by check mark, one by one. So you don't necessarily have to strain yourself by having to do multiple things at the same time, right? The human brain can't really, some people, I guess, can do multitasking, but for some people, multitasking is really difficult, right? It's better to focus on one thing at a time, because if you try your hardest to focus on more than one thing, well, you won't be able to, I guess, absorb what you need to absorb, or you'll burn out faster. So that's another thing, I guess, I would give as a tip. Another one that's actually very helpful for me, I would say, is whenever I have online class, and obviously you're on a desk with your computer. If your desk is cluttered, it feels, for me at least, it feels really different. Like, I don't know if I can learn as properly as I should if my desk is cluttered, because I guess it's a reflection of like what you're learning, right? Because if your area is messy, your brain is also technically messy, I would say. Like, if everything doesn't look as proper or as neat, your mind will, I guess, respond in the same way. Oh, I can't understand because my mind is preoccupied with all the clutter in my desk, right? So that's, I guess, another tip I would say would be pretty good. This is an interesting one that I think might help some students when it comes to staying motivated in online school. I should technically do this as well, but it's not something that I do as of yet. But they say that when you do have online class, change like clothes as if you were going to school, right? Just don't. So you say you wake up and you're in your pajamas, and then my class is at 9 a.m. I'm still wearing my pajamas or something like that. But apparently they said if you change into school clothes or clothes that you would normally wear if you were to go to school, it helps in, I guess, changing your attitude, because obviously your what you're wearing is also a reflection of like your attitude towards your academics, right? Because what is your attitude towards learning? Oh, I have class at 9 a.m. I can just have like normal clothes or just my pajamas because I won't be going outside anyways. But if you did take the time to like change, I think I could see how that could be motivating, because that way you actually have like a different attitude regarding your academics, because wow, you're actually taking the time to ready yourself. And I guess it also helps like when it comes to your learning as well, because that way you could you could definitely, I would say, learn better, because you're in like a better mindset or a better space than you would be if you were just wearing your pajamas. Right. So that's another tip I would say. I would say staying active also would be a good one, right? Because if you have online school, like you'll just be sitting in a desk or just staring at your computer screen for at least an hour, maybe 2 hours. But it's also important to stay active. I mean, active doesn't necessarily mean, go out and play sports or work out or anything. I feel like staying active would just be, I don't know, go for a walk in your house, or if you have a pet, maybe play with your pet for like a little bit. Like if you have a dog or a cat, just spend like 10, 15 minutes just playing with your cat or your dog. Among other things, like you can also maybe, I don't know, if you have like in your house, like you have a treadmill, I guess you could walk on the treadmill. Like it's good to stay active. That way, at least you're not just sitting down and just sitting down and not doing anything besides straining your eyes and I guess your hands and your fingers just typing on a keyboard and clicking away, right? So it's also important to stay active. Another one I think I would say is definitely take like breaks here and there when it comes to online learning. Mainly because if you can sit down and stare at a screen for a while, I think that's a big strain on the eyes, especially if you don't like wear glasses that have like special like blue light absorbing thing. I remember there was a time when I went to an eye doctor and they said, the glasses that we're going to be prescribing you are good because they have anti-blue light to help you with staring at screens for a long time so they don't damage your eyes. So a tip would be just after, I guess, an hour of sitting down, looking at your screen, doing your work or your assignments, it's good to take like a 5-minute break just to, help your eyes not to be strained or anything. So this is another helpful tip. I think the biggest one I would say to keep yourself motivated when it comes to online school is sleep. I find it difficult to stay motivated for school if I don't have like proper sleep. Mainly because, for example, say you have a lecture at 9 a.m. and then the night before you stayed up till like 1 or 2 o'clock, and then you have give or take 7 hours of sleep, right? And then by the time you wake up at that time, like your alarm goes off and you're like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. I want to go back to sleep. Well, there you go. You just lost motivation, right? Because you stayed up the night before and you feel tired, and knowing how it's an online learning environment and you don't necessarily have to be there like live or be there on time. You can just tell yourself, I'm just going to postpone and probably do it later, right? There you go. You kind of just lost a bit of motivation, right? So sleep really does, sleep really is a big factor when it comes to staying motivated for online class, right? Because if you're not rested, you'll feel tired, you'll feel sluggish, you'll feel I don't know, you just won't feel like you want to do things because you'll feel lazy because you have that lack of sleep. Right? So that's I guess, really, really helpful tip that I could give as well when it comes to staying motivated for online school. Anything else I could think of? Probably like something minor. Staying hydrated is also good. Like always have a water bottle or a glass of water with you when you're doing online school, because I don't know, it's not doesn't feel good to be parched when you're trying to learn, because you'll feel distracted. Like you're trying to read something and then you feel parched and you're like, oh, I need some water. What if you had it beside you and then just take a sip, right? Just something minor, something like that. Another one I would say is keeping organized. It's also really helpful. Like, for example, keeping track of your deadlines, keeping track of your assignments, your notes as well. I found it good that if you have, or if you're writing notes, make sure to put the date on them. I've made the mistake before of writing down notes and not putting the date. And then by the time I needed the notes, I had no idea which notes I needed, mainly because I didn't put the date, right? So that's another mini helpful tip, I guess. Other than that, there isn't much else I can think of that would be a helpful tip. I would assume there's a lot more, but those are the ones I can think of, right? So yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ken, for all these suggestions. Just like the previous one, I'm only going to touch base with a couple of these, even though these are all amazing, helpful tips. Now, I love it when Kuya Ken said, with God, it has to be intentional, because facts, some days it's so easy to get lost in the schedule and simply, quote unquote, forget to pray, or quote unquote, forget about God. But it has to be intentional. Kuya again pointed out that you have to learn to prioritize. And it's not just about prioritizing your deadlines, it's prioritizing your time in general. Again, we find some downtimes to be so helpful, and we don't downplay that, because they really, really do help relax and just take our mind off things after a long day. Us unwinding through Netflix or Disney Plus, right? Or whatever you like to do. Maybe you like to read. But out of all the 15 episodes that you're about to binge watch, or the 15 chapters that you're about to read out of this novel or fan fiction book or teen book, whatever you'd like to read, or whatever you'd like to do, really, out of all of those, I think it would be easy to forego one of them if you really want to. I think it would be easy to skip out on one chapter or two chapters and spend some time with God instead. I think it would be easy to skip out on this one episode of the show that you've already watched, but is watching again for comfort. To forego that one episode or two to spend some time with God. You have to be intentional with spending time with Jesus. Have some alone time with him, thank him, to vent to him, to apologize to him, whatever it is, as long as you spend time with him. It's a good time to remind everyone that God's wisdom can be heard by spending time with him and hearing from him. And that wisdom is the living word, It thrives and it's impactful and it's purposeful and it can be life-changing. And it is way more effective than what binge watching a show or what reading that self-help book, what those moral lessons can bring. They are helpful, but this is way more effective. Trust on that one. So yeah, like we again said, you don't need to be like spending 4 hours with God. Sometimes it can be just to acknowledge that God is with you and to keep you grounded and to kind of just keep you in line about what you're doing and why you're doing this. And yeah, it's just really, really important to be intentional about God, considering how intentional he is at how he made us and what he made us for. I mean, yeah, I think it's important to bring God in in all the equations in your life. And if you're struggling with school, it can be one of them. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Which brings me to one of my favorites, if not my personal favorite from Kuya Ken's list, which is creating a to-do list or a schedule, basically. This has become one of my favorite discoveries, not just for school, but in life. Having a planner changed me, and it was from a one-on-one meeting with my English teacher when he suggested that having a planner in your phone would help me and my time management. Specifically, he suggested Google Calendar. Now, at the beginning of each semester, he told me to write down all my deadlines. And, if you're in high school and they don't provide you a syllabus, then write down the important dates as you go. So in addition to that, you don't forget to write down some downtime. And that was a revelation to me, because usually when we think of an agenda, we only write down the deadlines or the work days, or basically just the important days. But you have to also apparently write down your social calendar and, the time you want to be spent alone, or really whatever works for you. As long as you're doing something that you want to set aside the time for, write it down. Even grocery shopping, if you decide to do it tomorrow, then whip out your calendar right now and write it down. So that was one of the biggest discoveries for me. It's one thing to see your calendar and analyze where your time goes, what you quote unquote wasted on. And it's also another thing to see how productive you've been, right? So whether to say yes to a new task being given or even to take breaks. So I think that's really important. And since then, I have learned to manage my time really well. And I learned that back in 2017, 2018. And since then, I've learned to be really good with my time management. And from then on, I also transitioned from phone calendar to desk calendar with color-coded pens to keep me on track. Honestly, much recommended, 10 over 10. If that helps you, good for you. If not, well, then Kuya Ken has a bunch of other things in his list that could help you. Now, the last thing I wanted to emphasize from Kuya Ken's list is the changing clothes. Now, that is so true. I know that sometimes, personally, I can do online school in my pajamas sometimes. But on those days where I know that I will be doing some assignments, like a few hours straight or whatnot, this activity or this action, not activity. This action helps by a lot. Changing clothes to feel more prepared. This mentality goes the same for whatever you do. Let's say, for example, if you go out wearing sweatpants to a dress-coded formal party, you would, of course, feel shy or unprepared or timid because what you're wearing isn't really fit for the event. Same goes for doing school. All of our lives up until 2020, we have been so used to waking up a certain time to get ready, get into clothes that we like to wear either for comfort or for style, and to go to school. Now, it's not like that anymore. And of course, our bedrooms, the atmosphere it brings is coziness, comfort, and, sleep. If you wake up now and choose to do school on your bed, it's kind of difficult considering all the elements around you point out to resting. Same goes for clothes. So yeah, if you feel that, I suggest getting ready as if you're actually going to go somewhere and test it out and see if it works for you. It might, and it might not, and that's okay. At least you've tried it. Might I add that having a specific spot where you do your school will also help. As in, if your bed is for sleeping, obviously try not to do some mind challenging stuff like studying or doing an assignment, because that is the place for your downtime. That's what you're used to doing. I would suggest maybe choosing a spot like doing it at a table or at your desk, a place that doesn't induce any vibes of distraction, where you know that if you sit here, you're going to get some work done. So yeah, those are some helpful tips thanks to Kuya Ken, and I added my 2 cents into some of those as well. So given how much time and effort it requires for online school, how do you insert God in your schedule?
Okay, so this is actually a really good question, and I definitely agree. Online school does require more effort than traditional schooling. I would say mainly because it's learning at your own pace, and sometimes learning at your own pace can be somewhat difficult. Like for example, for me, if I were to be in, like, for example, I'm either confused or I'm either having trouble with finding sources, or I'm having trouble with like the assignment in general, you I email my professor or my teacher. And sometimes when I do email them, it takes them maybe a few hours to get back to me. Sometimes they don't necessarily do that. Like I get a reply quicker, but there's that, right? For example, if you're having issues, you have to email them. So that's, I guess, a setback in comparison to like classroom-based learning, where if you were in the classroom and you were having trouble with what you're doing, you can just raise your hand or go to the teacher's desk and ask, "Hey, I'm having trouble with this question. Could you help me?" Right. So I guess it's simpler that way. Another way, online school requires more effort, in my opinion, is keeping track of deadlines. That's I think really really big, because with it being online, you have multiple classes, and sometimes deadlines have either they overlap or they're like back to back. So that's also pretty hard on, like, I guess, effort, right? Quote unquote effort. So with that being said, right? How do you insert God into like a schedule like that? Like if you're really busy, right? And I think that connecting with God shouldn't get in the way with everything else you need to do, right? Because when connecting with God, it has to be like intentional. Like you want to do it, right? And as a Christian, it's our like our obligation to, connect with Him and talk to Him, right? But it's also important to learn how to prioritize something like this, right? And I guess one way I could share with you guys on how to insert God into your schedule is exactly that. Why don't you like review your schedule? Like just take the time to go over what you need to do throughout the day, and then that way it can help you identify the times throughout your day where, say, things quiet down. Like for example, you finished your class for the day, and do things tend to quiet down for you after, say, 4 or 5 p.m., right? Or say you have maybe 5 or 10 minutes in between your classes, right? You can ask yourself, why don't you use that time to either, I don't know, pray or meditate on a Bible verse or listen to praise and worship, right? Or you can also reflect on the things that you do every day that could be made less of a priority. Like, for example, ask yourself, how often do you go on your phone and scroll through Instagram, right? Sometimes we don't even think about the amount of time we spend just scrolling through, right? You can say, oh, 5 minutes just went by, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? Like I said before, right? Really think of the things that you do that you can reduce or make less of a priority, right? Because oftentimes we don't have the time, because we allow like habits like this to distract us, right? When you try to make time, right, for God in your schedule, make an effort. Like, I'm not telling you to like stop doing what you're doing. Like, so, don't scroll through Instagram anymore, TikTok or YouTube, Netflix, Disney Plus. Don't do that anymore. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just make an effort, right? Make an effort to limit these types of distractions and spend that time intentionally with God, right? It doesn't have to be an hour or something like that. It can just be just small bits of your time, right? And it's also important to start small, and simple. You don't have to be really complicated or complex about it, right? Because as you know, when it comes to our habits, people always say, oh, habits, they're really hard to break, right? But it's also important to know that they're also difficult to create too, right? Difficult to make a habit of things, right? That's why I think that it's important to start by finding how you personally connect with God like the best, right? Like for some people, maybe it's through prayer. For some, it may be through meditation or memorizing Bible verses or just reading them. For some people, they respond really well with like praise and worship. They have like that really good connection when they listen to praise and worship, right? So simple steps like that, and if you have like what personally connects you with God best, just take the steps to make that as like a part of your routine, I would say. Like, for example, if you find that praise and worship is the best way you connect with God, why don't you like commit to listening to one song every day, right? So as every single day passes, like you have that set time that you have, just listen to your favorite praise and worship band or favorite praise and worship song, right? And if you do this like as a habit for a while, like as the days goes on, you just continue to have that set time where you connect with the Lord and you listen to your favorite praise and worship song. Eventually, your days will feel like it's not right, or it's incomplete if you don't have that time with God, right? So that's another way you could insert that into your schedule. And one thing I can also think of is memorizing Bible verses. Because when you commit the word of the Lord like into memory, you can you make sure you're never without like encouragement or connection with the Lord, right? So it's really good to memorize Bible verses, because if you think about it this way, if you have it memorized, right, you read it inside your head over and over, and then you start to find like a deeper meaning into the words, right? Or you find bits and pieces of information in there that you connect into in like a bigger way. So that's also really good, right? Another way, I guess, you could insert the Lord into your schedule is pray often, right? It doesn't mean you pray for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. Just, for example, say you have a quiz. That's an online quiz. Pray before the quiz, right? That's the Lord. Lord, please help me with this quiz. Please show me the right answers, and show me not the right answers so that I may avoid them. Give me the strength, give me the wisdom to finish this quiz, right? Just pray simple prayers like that, right? And obviously pray after as well, right? Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be able to do the quiz. I pray, Lord, that what I answered in my questions were correct. I pray, Lord, that the things that I learned were put into practice in this quiz. Yeah, simple things like that, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a long spiel. You can just like pray like simple prayers. Or, for example, again, when you're transitioning classes, like just quiet time with yourself and the Lord, right? So that's another thing. Just pray often, right? Another one I could think of finding ways to insert God into your schedule. You can also set alarms, right? For example, say you have a set time in your day where you would like to have spend that time with the Lord, right? For example, say if you set alarm 5 p.m. Okay, 5 p.m. till 5:30, I'd like to use this time to meditate and have that connection with the Lord, right? So that time is set for you and the Lord, right? You do what you would you would want to do. Like, for example, you'd want to pray, or you want to meditate on Bible verses, or spend that time listening to praise and worship, right? So that's totally up to you. So then again, that's another way you can insert God into your schedule when it comes to, like, as we know, life gets really busy, right? But it's also important to set aside some time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, right? Just some time that's set for you to spend with the Lord. And remember, like what I said earlier, you have to be intentional, right? Don't just set a time because, oh, it's what I have to do, right? Or it's something that you, what's the word I'm looking for? You're just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? That's not the right attitude to have. You need to have that attitude of being intentional with the Lord, right? So that's another thing I could say, I guess, when it comes to this question.
Now, this is a pretty unconventional way that we're doing this episode, but God finds a way to make it all work. And I love it because it's something new. So here we are. Now, Ken gave a numerous list of some pretty good tips with how to stay engaged in online learning, and all of them will be effective one way or another to someone. But I wanted to touch base with a couple of these that are either my personal favorite and or what has worked for me. So I want to talk about the I can do it later mentality. Oh my goodness, yes. Raise your hands if you've been a victim of this very dangerous thought. Procrastinating can be incredibly addicting, especially since, most reasons we hear as to why we do it is, I thrive under pressure. And, sometimes it's true. And really, the mind does work extra hard to help you when you're in desperate measure, as in when you're chasing a deadline. However, this practice often leads to burnout. Setting a time to do it in advance, or at least finishing it in small increments over a span of time, would make a tremendous difference. And not to mention the feeling of not having to rush for the 11:59 deadline is unbeatable. So yeah, do that, you guys. What's a Bible verse you hold on to when school gets tough, and why?
So there isn't one particular verse that I go back to when I feel like, I guess, pressured or stressed or overwhelmed in school. I mean, it happens here and there, but I guess I could share a couple of verses that are really good when I go through like a tough time or a difficult time. I remind myself of these specific verses because not only do they uplift me, or not only do they help me get through things, but more importantly, they make me feel a lot better, because knowing the Lord is with me, no matter what it is I go through, it helps me stay grounded and helps me not be, I guess, overwhelmed by like the difficult times. So one of them is 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7, casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Right? So I remind myself of this verse whenever I'm feeling either anxious or anything bad is going on, whether it be in school or in life, family, anything in general, because as the verse states, right, because he cares for us, so he's there to help us through whatever it is that we may be going through. He's always there watching, observing us, so it's very powerful. Another one that I could share that I also remind myself whenever, like I said, I go through either like difficult times, is I'm pretty sure this verse everyone is familiar with, right? Philippians 4 verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? So again, it's very good to meditate on the words of this verse, because in life when we go through like difficulties or stress or pressures of everyday life, like it's good to remind ourselves that everything is possible, right? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and He is our pillar, right? He does not put us in like sand or shaky foundations. He puts us on solid ground, right? So that we can withstand whatever it is that life throws at us. So another, like I said, powerful verse that I remind myself about whenever I feel, I guess, down. Another one also from the book of Philippians. This one's also chapter 4, but this one's verse 19. Right? It goes like this: "And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus." Right. So, like I said, if we when we're going through times like these, right, it's always we always know that when we ask, we shall receive. Right. And all our needs are met if we just stay committed and always affix our eyes onto the Lord, right? And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus, right? So another very good verse to meditate upon whenever we feel down. I guess one more that I could share is I guess my life verse, and this one is Isaiah chapter 6 verse 8, and it goes like this: "And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Then I said, here am I, send me." So the reason why this is my life verse is because when I was younger, my teacher, I think I was in grade 4 or 5, my teacher taught us about the prophet Isaiah, and this verse was part of the like the story, and what I what I drew from it, or what I understood from it, was this is Isaiah's answer, or this is his answer to the call of the Lord, right? He was telling God that he was available and that he was ready to go and begin his prophetic ministry, right? It also showed that his humbleness and his absolute trust in the Lord, although he was aware of his sin, he was still there to say, here am I, Lord, send me. He was still available to go and answer the call, right? And that's also the reason why it's my life verse, because it's also my way of answering the call of the Lord, right? That here am I too, right? I'm also here, Lord, like send me, right? So it's just a really amazing verse, and I was enamored by the words, and I was like, wow, I want to really live this verse and really put into action like in my life. So yeah, that's a really amazing verse and life verse for me. Isaiah chapter 6 verse 8.
I don't really feel it necessary to add to the list that Kuya Ken provided. I think it's good on its own. So please take the encouragement that you need at the time that you hear this. I hope all of these can be helpful to you. All of these could have been some encouragement for you. So yeah, take one as you may please. And yeah, we're praying for you. So yeah, what's an instance where you feel burnt out, but God came to rescue you when it came to school?
This one's actually a really good question, because I experienced this last semester, actually, during the finals week. So during that time, I was really cramming and trying to stay above everything. But me being me, I basically got a little bit lazy, because I was like, oh, it's near the end of the semester anyway, and I don't really need to push myself anymore because it's almost done anyways. But my mom actually noticed this, that oh, you're what's going on, like you're kind of like, slacking, and even though it's finals. And I was like, she's right. And we had a conversation about it, and they told me, she told me to, you're near the end, why don't you like push yourself and do like your best, but not the way that I'm saying it, because Filipino moms, when you're slacking in school, they kind of get a little heated. So yeah, my mom and I had that discussion, and I was like, okay, I understand that I need to do like better, and not just to pass or just for the sake of passing, but I actually need to try and get on top of it. So I tried to do that, but I soon realized myself that it's easier said than done. Right. During that week of like finals, I was just really, I guess, I felt exhausted. I felt like drained. I felt like I wasn't really able to like understand what it is I need to understand in order to like once I do the exam or do the final test, like I'll actually be able to answer properly without having to either like consult my notes or my textbook for an extended time, just trying to find that answer. So during that time, I always try to pray, because prayer works wonders, you guys. Because when you do that, you just put yourself in that position of like you're vulnerable, and you're just there to really talk to God and ask Him to like give you what it is that you need. And so during that time, I prayed, just Lord, just give me rest, give me peace, so that I may be able to just really finish strong in my classes. And during that time, with just me praying to God, just really having that conversation with Him, that was what I was really looking for. That He gave me rest, He gave me peace. It felt tranquil, right? That word tranquil, that's what it felt like, because I didn't really worry as much about like my exams, because I was just there to have a conversation with the Lord. And I didn't feel pressured or stressed. I was just in a place and time where I could be with Him and just really talk to Him and have a conversation where I can just be at peace. So yeah, that's what I did. And it was really significant to me, because I realized something during that time, that when you put yourself in a place where you can just be quiet and just have that time with yourself, like things quiet down, like your mind doesn't feel heavy or overwhelmed. You're just like you're just at peace. And it's really good, because that's what I really needed at the time. Like I wanted to just let go of everything for a little bit, just so I don't feel that just pressing down on me like all the time. So it was a really good moment to have. So another instance where God came to my rescue during school was actually for this semester, where I was waitlisted for some of my classes. My parents and I had a discussion that I needed to do more classes than I did last semester, because I need to catch up on credits. So in order to do that, I needed to sign up for obviously more classes. But since I signed up a little late, most of them were already full, and I was obviously waitlisted. I just said, okay, it is what it is. I mean, it's my fault that I applied, or not applied. I signed up for the class like really late, but I just said, Lord, it's all up to you. I did what I could, and I just pray that I get accepted into these classes so that I can pursue my academics in that way. And so I just waited and prayed about my wait list. And 2 days before the classes started, I received an email, and lo and behold, the email was sent to me that I was off the wait list and I was already registered in the class. So, like I said earlier, prayer really works wonders. And when you really intentionally pray to God, like He will provide, right? Ask and you shall receive. But it's not always about asking. You also have to prepare yourself to like receive those blessings. So during that time when I was just waiting, I tried my best to really read through some of the requirements for the classes, like for the prerequisites. Do I have the required like grades and stuff? And I did and everything. So yeah, and when you do your best, God does the rest. So yeah. Other than that, there aren't any other instances in school where I felt burnt out. Most of the time when I feel burnt out, it's during times where classes have assignments or quizzes or papers that overlap with each other. And that's when I have to choose, okay, this one has this deadline and this one has this deadline. I have to figure out which one do I have to prioritize. And when I do that, I kind of fixate on on figuring out which one to prioritize and end up not doing what I need to do, but instead I procrastinate, which is, I guess, pretty common for most students, right? Procrastination. But I found that when I procrastinate, well, all I really need to do is just sit down and do something, and then it'll eventually build up, right? As you keep doing things like step by step, small things here and there, they build up and add up and add up and turn into the big things, right? I'm reminded of the time where I was told the small things that nobody sees turn into the big things that everybody wants. And that's I guess, a saying that I always think of whenever I do a few things here and there, because the small things do add up, right? So think of those small things that you do. Like, it can be anything, honestly. Like, for example, do you read like pages of a book, like 5 pages a day for like a week, and then eventually after like 2-3 weeks you've done like half a book, and then eventually a month goes by, you finish the whole book. So yeah, something like that. But yeah, other than that, there isn't any other things that I can share regarding burning out and having the Lord there. I mean, He's always there, and all you really need to do is just pray and really connect with Him, because like I said, in my experience, when I prayed for peace and just a way to escape all the pressures and, I guess, like rough experience at school, I'll just go to Him and have like a quiet time. And yeah, so that's what I would suggest, I guess. If you feel like you're being burned out during school, you can always talk to your fellow students or your friends or your parents or our pastors. But if anything else, just talk to the Lord and He'll like cover you. So no problems there. Yeah.
Now, with Kuya Ken's testimony, I'm sure we've all experienced it once or maybe a few times in our lives, and that's okay. That's nothing to be ashamed of. I love that Kuya Ken was so transparent with it about how he and his mom really talked about it and how it went down, because you're right, Filipino moms really tend to not exactly butcher you into it, but they take these things very seriously because they only want the best for you, and they have their own way of showing it, And what matters is you acknowledge it. You acknowledge the fact that you burnt out. You acknowledge the fact that something went wrong. And what's important is that you determine what went wrong. And afterwards, you just try your best to avoid the same triggers that caused it to happen. Because, you're not going to get different results if you try doing the same thing again and again, right? So something must have happened there, and figure it out. You avoid it for future reference. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but God's grace is present and He is there willing to help and to rescue you whenever you need it. So yeah, YWAV mentors, if you're a YWAVer, and if you're just a youth in general, it shouldn't be intimidating to reach out to someone who wants to help you. And really, we should get of this mentality of to each their own. I'm only here for myself. Nobody out there is looking out for me, because you're right. We should look out for ourselves. However, some people out there, i.e. your YWAV mentors, really want to help you. Your pastors want to help you. Your community mentors want to help you. And that's what we're here for. That is what this community is for. Specifically, I'm talking about our church, Jesus is Alive community. This is what we're here for. We're here to help strengthen each other. If we see you struggling, we're not going to turn a blind eye and then kind of leave you there hanging by the thread, right? We're here to help you because we know what it's like. More often than not, we know what it's like to be in that position. And maybe the reason why we experience those things is to be able to help you as well, since we have overcome that. And it's not going to be an easy thing, like an overnight thing. But what's important is that we get somewhere. 5% progress is better than 0. Just keep that in mind. Yeah. So, self-improvement is our goal. In life, you should always be looking for ways to improve yourself. You don't have to have it done perfectly the first time. And it is this fear that people are looking at you and it's going to be embarrassing when you fail the first time. It's not, because most of the time, the people that you are looking at, they started from somewhere too. The people that you're comparing yourself to, oh, how come they get to be so good at this? How come they're reaching the 90s right away? More often than not, they started somewhere too. And then through process of trial and error, they figured out what works for them. And then therefore, they continue doing that. Same goes for you. Some days you may reach the peak of a specific chapter in your life, but it just means that it's time for us to start a new one. And with God's wisdom, we get to discover whole new things about us and about this world that can make it a more interesting place to live in. Now, put that in the perspective of school, and you find that if something doesn't work for you, it means to try something new. Don't be scared of trying something new, you guys. The world is limitless, and God is so powerful and so sovereign that He is able to do things and move mountains for you if you need it. So, yeah. I hope all of these things are helpful to you, or at least you find some that can be. Thank you so much to Kuya Ken for providing really the meaty part, or the main part of this podcast. Everything that he said was incredibly helpful and an encouragement that I didn't know that I need. So I hope that you find the same feeling with that. I hope that you find it as an encouragement as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Sam. God bless you, and see you on the next episode of YWAV On Demand.